Senator Bernie Sanders with a brand new plan to tax the rich. Oh, now he's talking. Now, his new plan is called the For the 99.8% Act. Now, that's, of course, that's the name of the bill, or what it's known as anyway, and I think it's actually a pretty great name because it shows who it's actually working for. Now, this bill is about the estate tax, and what it would do is that it would start taxing the estates of people who inherit more than $3.5 million. Now, right now, because of the Trump tax cuts of 2017, you had that threshold moved up to about $11 million. Well, this bill moves it right back down and says, okay, if you make more, if you inherit more than $3.5 million, you're going to have to pay some taxes on that. Now, Sanders on Twitter talked about the plan after the Washington Post reported on Thursday. He said the fairest way to reduce wealth inequality, invest in the disappearing middle class, and preserve our democracy is to enact a progressive estate tax on the inherited wealth of multimillionaires and billionaires. He said, today I'm introducing a bill to do just that. Now, according to the report from the Washington Post, the For the 99.8% Act would tax the estates of those who inherit more than $3.5 million, which Sanders estimates is 0.2% of the country. Now, the breakdown goes as follows. For inheritance of around $3.5 million to $10 million, there would be a 45% tax. Now, on inheritance of around $10 million to $50 million, there would be a 50% tax. From $50 million to $1 billion, 55% tax. And then for more than anything over $1 billion, you have 77% tax. That's progressive. Now, the Post, citing Sanders' aides, said the plan would raise about $2.2 trillion from the total of the country's 588 billionaires. Now, the Post mentions how, well, we don't know when it's actually going to do so or what the time frame is. Well, yeah, of course, because basically what this is tied to when these billionaires die and actually hand over their wealth after they die to their families, to their heirs. So, of course, we don't have a time frame, but nonetheless, it's still a decent amount of money, $2.2 trillion, that would eventually be added to the coffers at some point or the other. So now, this is actually a fantastic piece of legislation and exactly what we want to see from progressives. Now, Republicans, as I mentioned before, they already made sure to raise the threshold for you paying estate taxes to $11 million. Now, what they really, really wanted to do is eliminate the estate tax whatsoever. In fact, Mitch McConnell on Monday introduced his own piece of legislation, which would fully repeal the estate tax and hand billions of dollars to the already rich, literally tax-free. So now, of course, in order to cover for this, Republicans have had to come up with a way to justify this. So what they do is that they lie about it. Of course. So this money is basically money handed down from wealthy heirs. It is basically a gift. Now, they despise this, taxing this, right? So they call it a death tax. And they say, well, the death tax is going to affect you. You're an average American, and when you die, you're going to have to pay whatever you have left when you hand it over to your kids. But wait a minute. No, that's not what happens. Again, the limit right there is at $11 million a year, and Bernie Sanders wants to change it to $3.5 million. So you would only pay this so-called death tax if you plan to hand over when you die up to $3.5 million. Most people don't have that. So most people are not affected by the so-called death tax. Now, if that argument, it doesn't take, right? They have another argument. And that's based on fairness, right? So they say, well, it's not fair that you double tax this money. No, wait a minute. This isn't double taxation, right? So that's the claim. They claim that, well, look, when they die, that money's already taxed. And then when they die and hand it off to their kids, that money's taxed again. That's double taxation. That is immoral and that's completely unfair. Well, no, it's not double taxed. First of all, if you're an heir, that means you didn't actually work for the money. So Paris Hilton didn't work for that money, right? She got it from her father, Conrad Hilton. Paris Hilton didn't earn anything, and yet, if the Republicans had it their way, Paris Hilton wouldn't pay a dime. So that's the problem here, right? So how can it be double taxation when someone just handed you the money? I mean, you didn't earn it, but you got to pay taxes on it because it's basically a gift. It is a gift. So, look, the estate tax has an actual function, right? That function is to prevent growing dynastic wealth. Now, Bernie Sanders said that it's a way to stop wealth inequality, and he's absolutely correct. Now, this isn't a way to punish the rich because they always say, oh, taxes are punishing the rich for being rich. No, this is to stop gigantic amounts of wealth inequality in the country and to prevent dynasties from forming. You know, that stuff that happened back in, old Europe and even earlier in the United States before we had a progressive tax system, where you had these wealthy dynastic families that would just pass on their wealth from one generation to the next, and it would never go back to the people. It would create a aristocracy. So that is a big problem, and America, we actually wanted to prevent that from happening. So I said it happened earlier in America. That's actually not true. The founder said, we don't want that to happen. So now, as I said, this entire thing is against actually meritocracy, right? Now, I thought Republicans believed in a meritocracy. No, it turns out that if you're wealthy, or if you're the son of a wealthy person, or a daughter, or whatever, Republicans don't believe that you should have to pay tax on any of that wealth that you inherit. People like Donald Trump, by the way. Donald Trump got everything that he had from his father. And he's actually incredibly terrible at business. And he got more wealth and he got bailed out by his dad. He got over $400 million in money that he really didn't want to pay tax on. And so he got rid of the estate tax, or is trying to get rid of the estate tax. He actually got it reduced. And now Republicans want to finish the job so that Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Donald Jr. are not going to have to pay any taxes on what they'll inherit from Donald Trump. So that's the whole plan here. Now, it's great for their kids. It's not so good for the country. So maybe we ought to change that and actually put in a fair estate tax, which will prevent this dynastic wealth. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.